Good afternoon, everyone. I was just talking to the people at my table and really saying that it's rare for me to get out in the middle of the day and come out and have lunch under the sky. It's really a wonderful environment, and it's great to be with all you wonderful people over here today. And it's great. It's a great opportunity for us as a foundation to express sincere gratitude and thanks to each and every one of you. When this foundation started, a little over 4 years ago now, it was like the little steam engine which is going uphill and saying, I can. And today that I can is a lot stronger because of the additional steam all of you have generated. And so I think, like Joanne has said, we are very proud of what we've achieved. And I am particularly proud of how much the Pablove Foundation has really done to further scientific advancement in really fighting against childhood cancer. And it's really done in a spirit of love. I mean, I've been there, right from the very get-go, and I'm just amazed at the commitment of all our staff at the office, all the board members, and actually all your commitment. And just as Joanne said, it was because of it, at the last grant giving session over here, where we got so many excellent proposals that, and we couldn't fund as many of that, which really motivated one of the people here to go out and say that's unacceptable, and really came back with a $50,000 check, which actually helped us fund an additional grant. So for that, we're very grateful. So anyway, without further ado, I mean, this year, as of this year, the Pablove Foundation would have given out $900,000 in grants to its funding childhood cancer. And that's actually fantastic. So I'm here to talk to you about the last 300,000, which we just gave away, which will actually be announced today. And I want to talk to you about the process. I mean, I had a scientific advisory committee which initially had 7 other members, which were young, mid-level scientists. So really people who are going to take us to the next level in the future, and not somebody who's old and established, and not somebody who's inexperienced enough that they're just starting. So really bring these young minds and actually have them really think about all the science and really award these projects. And we use very, very strict guidelines, and we actually rate every proposal we have with a score from 1 to 9. And 1 is actually the highest score, which stands for exceptional, and 9 is the worst possible score you can get, which stands for poor. And in between, you have number 2, which is outstanding, number 3, which is excellent, number 4, which is very good, all right, number 5, which is good, number 6, which is fair, number 7, which is marginal, and then number 8. I missed 1 in between. I can't forget, but you get the idea. I mean, when you're low, you're really bad. And we received 28 applications this year, which is a record for the Pablove Foundation. And all but 1 scored higher than a very good. But so we can't fund 27 very good grants. I mean, it would be ideal if you could get there. So we had to make a decision on where to draw a line. And I'm really proud to say that we actually drew a line between outstanding and excellent. So across the board, it's somebody who could score about a 2.5 on an average. So we are really dealing with the cream. And we actually had 9 different grants out of those 28 which scored at that level. And we discussed them, and we made a proposal to the board out of 6 of those 8. And I'm glad to say that we actually really funded 3 of them in the general category and 2 separately in the OMS category. So the 3 grants we funded, the first grant went to Dr. Andras Hexy from Texas Children's Hospital and the Baylor College of Medicine. So Dr. Hexy is actually a trained pediatric oncologist who's working in an immunotherapy approach to treat pediatric liver cancers. And what he's doing is something really cool. He's actually taking the immune cells in the body and tricking them in a particular way so that they can actually go and identify liver cancer cells specifically and kill them. So he's got to engineer the body's own cells and then actually give them back to patients. So the good thing about this is it's the body's own immune system, which has just been fooled in a little way to fight your cancer. So they've already demonstrated some of this data preliminarily, and it's really very exciting because it offers hope to patients not only to attack their cancer, but to attack their cancer without side effects. So we really thought that this was a great grant, and we're very happy to award Dr. Andras Hexy this first grant. The second grant was awarded to Dr. Masanori Hayashi from Johns Hopkins University. And this young investigator is actually trying to figure out how the second most common type of bone cancer, which occurs in children, spread to different parts of the body. And we feel that the original tumor lets out these little cells which flow around in the blood, and then they find a little home somewhere, and then they begin to grow. And that's how cancer spreads. And all of you know, probably just reading in the late press, is that once a cancer has spread, it's extremely difficult to cure a patient. And so if we can figure out to catch these particular cells before they can go and set up shop somewhere, that would save a lot of patients, because our surgery and our chemotherapy and our radiation actually helps a lot the patients who have disease in one particular place. Not only is he going to try and capture those early cells to find out what they are, he's actually looking at some proteins inside these cells to say what makes those proteins tell these cells how to go to a particular place and set up shop. And he's studying a protein called Wnt. I mean, if you remember that or not, doesn't matter, but it's an important protein which goes in over there. And we felt that this was very worthy of the Pablove Foundation support. And the last grant in the general category, which we actually funded, is a leukemia grant against a rare type of leukemia called T-cell leukemia. So when leukemia is the most common cause of cancer in children, but 80% of children will have something called B-cell leukemia. And today, with all our research, we actually cure over 85% of those children, and that's truly remarkable. But you know, when you're a parent or you're a child and you sit in that 15%, it's not good at all. I mean, you know, so for any particular child, it's either 0, you don't make it, or 100, you make it. So really, statistics don't make a decision. The issue is that one child getting cancer, one child not getting cured is one child too many. And so we've got to do our best to really address that issue. And at least if we can't, you know, really eradicate it, at least bring it down to as small a number going forward. So Dr. John Carter at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Institute at Seattle actually put forward this proposal where we have some proteins in leukemia cells which are called checkpoints. And these proteins, when they actually work, prevent normal cells from doubling and multiplying and spreading. And so he's actually found a way to try and knock out this particular checkpoint protein in these leukemia cells so that they don't spread and they don't resist all the treatment, and in a really innovative method. And that's the third grant which we're actually going to fund. So the next two grants really fell into the opsoclonus myoclonus syndrome. Big name. Truly, you know what opsoclonus myoclonus is opsoclonus is dancing eyes, you know, and myoclonus is dancing hands and feet. It sounds like a puppet. It's actually not really happy. But when you see these little children come into you, their eyes are swinging all around, spinning in their orbits, and their hands and legs keep moving around and thrashing around, where they can actually hurt themselves. They, you know, because they can't control, they slap their faces, they hit themselves. If they are in a crib, they knock against the crib and this thing. And we found out that the majority of children really get this because they have neuroblastoma, which is a type of cancer. But interestingly, this cancer is actually cured by surgery. It doesn't need chemotherapy or anything. It's a small, tiny tumor sitting there. You take it out and it goes away. So these children don't die because of cancer. But because of this tumor, they actually get neurologically devastated. And not only that, even if we control their movements and their eye movements, can you imagine your eyes spinning around? It's like you're in perpetual vertigo over there. It's crazy. And these children manage, and it's really distressing, is that even if we can calm these things down with medication, your brain continues to deteriorate. So much so when you become a teenager, you really drop your IQ to such a low level that you're not functional. So it's a devastating disease. And, we see several of these children. And we were really grateful to this family, despite having a child who's struck with this disease, has the fortitude, the courage to raise specific funds to really understand this. And we had 2 out of 5 outstanding grants in this area, one all the way from Oxford University in the United Kingdom, from Dr. Bethan Lang, who's actually going to use mass spectrometry, which is a technique to isolate these specific antigens. Antigens are things which cause the body to respond against them in these particular patients, so that if we find a way of blocking these antibodies from finding those antibodies won't attack the brain and won't attack the eyes and make them do these bizarre things. And so that was really wonderful. And I just saw an email from Dr. Bethan Lang in a typical British way, was just so excited. She just kept repeating herself and saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And the next grant came from the University of Colorado from a Dr. Gregory Owens. And Dr. Gregory Owens is taking this one step further. So I said this problem is caused by antibodies which go and attack the brain and the spinal cord and the eyes. And what makes antibodies are B cells. So he is actually collaborated with a scientist who's collected spinal fluid from around the brain, and is going to actually assess these antibodies in the fluid and then find ways in which he can stop the B cells from producing these antibiotics. Again, very, very innovative work. In a rare disease, he has the access to do it and really the opportunity to make an impact. Now, if any person wrote, because opsoclonus myoclonus is so rare, if any scientist wrote a grant about this and sent it to the NIH or government, they're going to say, oh, it affects such a few children. It's not going to impact health in any way. And so this is where money, support from the Pablove Foundation can really make the difference in an individual's life when they actually fund these unique things which nobody else is interested in funding. And finally, for our last grant, we always tell our grantees that if you have promising research and that is judged appropriately by the Scientific Advisory Committee, you have a chance to get this renewed and get another $50,000 from us, so that you can carry on your good work, because we don't want funding to stand in the way of you making the discoveries which are going to help everybody. And we were very pleased this year to have sufficient funds, and it was that $50,000 that came out last year to help us really award this grant to Dr. Muller Fabry at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Dr. Fabry actually studies neuroblastoma and really how it interacts with the immune system. And what he's found out is that the immune system cells send messages to the neuroblastoma cells in little envelopes, okay, with little messages in them. And then the neuroblastoma cell takes them up and opens that envelope, reads the letter and says, oh yes, now I can behave more badly. It gives them permission. And then this neuroblastoma cells makes more of these envelopes and sends them back to the immune cells, and really tells the immune cells to send out more of these messages. So it's like a chain letter, if you will. It goes out and spreads. The only thing is this didn't come from Nigeria. This came, from the immune cell to the cancer cell. And we're very fortunate to have Dr. Muller Fabry over here, since he didn't have to come from far away to recognize him. a really brilliant, young scientist whom we have a lot of hope for in the future. So those are our 6 grants, and it's really wonderful to be in this position to really support the science. I think there's plenty more which we can do. I just want to end with 3 thoughts, and I think I say this every year, but I think they're worth repeating because this is what keeps me engaged and involved with what I do. Number one is childhood cancer is the leading disease-related cause of death in children. Unfortunately, the most common causes are accidents and, believe it or not, suicides and homicides. But the leading cause of disease-related death in children today is cancer. We've got to do something about that. That's number one. Number two is we've made tremendous, tremendous progress. I mean, 50 years ago, if you looked at a survival curve of any child with cancer, your chances of being alive was less than 20%, and not even at 5 years, at 2 years. Today, at 5 years, more than 80% of children will be alive, which means many of them are surviving into the future. So when you save a child's life, we can hope that they live 70 or 80 years. So if you multiply that by the number of children you save, you can imagine the number of person years which you've actually saved. So the impact of support to pediatric cancer research is really, you get the most bang for your buck over there. Seriously. And in this, and because we've had this success, 1 in 600 to 750 young adults today between the ages of 20 and 40 is actually a survivor of childhood cancer. So my bet is that when you meet people if you actually get into a conversation with them and go a little deeply, you'd be surprised to know that one of them survived childhood cancer. The scary part of it is that at least 2/3 of them have a serious health problem because of their treatment, and 1 in 3 of them, that problem can be life-threatening. And now that we actually have survivors who are living into their 60s and 70s, some of these problems are pretty bad. Right now, the Pablove Foundation focuses on funding things which are going to push the frontier. But I think there are other areas of research which we can support. Like number one, survivorship research. Like how do we mitigate some of these problems so that these young people, young children can lead healthier lives later? The trauma a diagnosis of cancer causes, psychosocial and behavioral research, that's another area which we could potentially expand into. And then we find simple things. Dr. Badia at City of Hope has actually shown that because Hispanic children with leukemia are less compliant with their medication, their cure rate is 10% less than somebody who's compliant. And so she's designed this novel thing to really make children and make parents pay attention to just being compliant with their treatment. And that can save another 10% of lives. And so I would like to challenge us to look at the model which Crystal and Naveen Vishwanatha basically set up for opsoclonus myoclonus, and they set up this bucket. And it'll be great if we have a bucket for psychosocial and behavioral research, great for a bucket for survivorship research, so we can actually call for proposals and pick for promising areas. And those areas are much more hard to get funding for. And the last thought to close you with is you all heard about sequestration and the government and funding. And this is something where I think I'm going to encourage the Pablove Foundation to get more involved with advocacy, and this is going around in the country. The Children's Oncology Group is a big group of pediatric oncologists who all got together in the 60s and then began working together to really make an impact on childhood cancer. And we have made an impact. This year, our grant came up for renewal, and we requested $38 million from the government for all the research which we think needs to be done over the next 5 years. And we just got awarded $23 million for that $38 million. And so that is actually decreasing the number of clinical trials we can done, closing down a couple of laboratories, and this is going to have an impact. And so this is where philanthropy really helps take something to the next level. And I can tell you, as the head of oncology at Children's Hospital, and I've looked back at data over the last few years, each dollar philanthropic support is converted by good institutions to anywhere from $7 to $23 on the dollar. So if any of us had that investment in the market, I think we'd jump at it, right? So the work, your support is so critical to this field. I can't thank you enough. for all your support and your dedication. And I would end right now with telling all of you to go out and spread Pablove. Thank you.